Assalamu alaikum. Very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are joining from Turkey, Ibn Haldun University. I am Dr. Uysal&Morgul, and I'm joined with my colleague, Dr. Burcu Uysal. Our research is on religious coping, resilience, and well-being among Syrian immigrant adolescents in Turkey. Over 9 years, there have been ongoing war in Syria, which caused several traumatic experiences on every age group, including children. And according to UN resources, currently over 5.5 million Syrian refugees are in various countries, and about 45% of those are under age 18. And currently 3.6 million Syrian refugees are in Turkey. And we are talking about trauma. Trauma, we mean it is a response to a deeply distressing event that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope and causes feelings of helplessness, diminishes their sense of self. And in terms of response to trauma, people respond differently. Some may develop psychological problems, while others may have mild symptoms or no symptoms at all. And in response to trauma, and some people, when coping the trauma, they may have psychological resilience, which refers to being able to bounce back from major stresses in life, such as traumatic life events. Our main variable is religious coping. Religious coping means religiously framed cognitive, emotional, or behavioral responses to stress, which has been found to be positively related to psychological resilience. However, religious coping is a multidimensional construct, and it may have both positive and negative effects on the outcomes. So not all religious coping strategies are useful. We are talking about negative religious coping, which reflects a tenuous relationship with God. For instance, punishing God reprisal or demonic reprisal, spiritual discontent, interpersonal religious discontent, which may lead to poorer consequences and is therefore considered maladaptive. So, so may not be adaptive as positive religious coping. By positive religious coping, we mean a secure relationship with God, which, for example, benevolent religious appraisal, religious forgiveness, seeking religious support, or spiritual connection, which thought to be associated with benefits in psychological adjustment. In the present study, we have two main objectives, which is to examine psychological resilience and religious coping styles of Syrian adolescents who have traumatic war and immigration experience. And secondly, to examine the effect of religious coping on life satisfaction, depression, anxiety, and stress mediated by resilience. Here you can see our model. And our research questions are, what are the levels of life satisfaction, depression, anxiety, and stress among Syrian adolescents in Turkey? And we will also look at the difference between the age groups and the difference between genders in terms of trauma, religious coping, resilience, life satisfaction, depression, anxiety, and stress. And finally, our last research question is, does resilience mediate the effect of religious coping on the dependent variables, which are life satisfaction and depression, anxiety, and stress? And does trauma incidence affect religious coping, resilience, and life satisfaction? In our methodology, we use cross-sectional design. And the first collected data was 507, but those below 12 years old are excluded, and also those born out of Syria and also immigrated before the Syrian war were excluded from original data. So the resulting data is 443, and majority of those 56% are females. And the age range was between 12 to 18 years. Data were collected from middle schools, high schools, and two temporary education centers, and through an NGO in Istanbul. And all instruments were both in two languages, Arabic and Turkish, and the participants were able to choose according to their language preferences. We use SPSS and OMOS, descriptive statistics, t-test, structural equation modeling was used. And these are our instruments. We use demographic questionnaire, and for religious coping, brief religious coping scale, cumulative trauma scale, which is to evaluate different traumatic experiences, and satisfaction with life scale, and for resilience, child and youth resilience scale, which is measuring psychological resilience factors in childhood and youth, and finally, depression, anxiety, and stress scale. As for the results, I'm leaving for Dr. Burcu.
Thank you, Ebru. I will continue with our results and firstly some descriptive statistics. Since there is no cutoff value in the religious coping scale, we evaluated a 3-point reference interval according to the number of questions and answering options. According to this interval, the mean values obtained from the positive religious coping subscale and negative religious coping subscale can be interpreted as an average religious coping in the sample. Similarly, if the reference interval is calculated in the resilience scale, the resilience score of the sample with 3.7 average can be evaluated as slightly above the average. Considering the life satisfaction scale cutoff scores, the average of the participants is in the dissatisfied range. Depression, anxiety, and stress levels were all above the normal levels, and depression, anxiety levels were moderated. Stress level was in the range of mild. And then we compared the sample by dividing it according to secondary school and high school age groups, considering that they are in different states of development. Positive religious coping was higher in high school age group than in age group of secondary students. Again, in the high school age group, the levels of depression, anxiety, and stress were significantly higher than the participants in the younger age group. On the other hand, in the secondary school age group, trauma incidence is lower and resilience and life satisfaction levels are higher. When we make a comparison by gender, the only difference was seen to be in the anxiety levels, that the girls' anxiety level is higher than boys. After the descriptive statistic was done, the model of the study was tested. Based on previous research, we basically assumed that positive religious coping affects resilience and resilience affects life satisfaction. In this model, we included the total number of traumas experienced and assumed that the total number of traumas affected all the variables in the model. We statistically tested our structural equation model with the SPSS AMOS program. Our results gave very good model fit values. In other words, we can say that the model we tested was verified for this sample. According to the results of our model, the number of traumas experienced affects the psychological resilience and life satisfaction of Syrian adolescents in a negative way, and positive religious coping in a positive way. In addition, positive religious coping has a positive effect on life satisfaction through psychological resilience. Now we can answer our research questions. In the first research question, we checked the average scores of variables. The average of the participants is in the dissatisfied range in the life satisfaction scale. Depression, anxiety levels are moderated. Stress level is in the range of mild, above the normal level. In the second research question, we compared the results in the secondary and high school age participants. Higher trauma incidence and higher positive religious coping, lower resilience and life satisfaction, higher depression, anxiety, and stress scores were seen in the older group. In the third research question, we compared the boys and girls, and the results has yielded a difference only in anxiety scores, that the girls has higher anxiety levels. Lastly, we examined the model of the study, and the model of the study had a very good model fit and verified with the dependent variable life satisfaction. resilience mediated the effect of positive religious coping on life satisfaction. To sum up our results roughly, older participants have more trauma and higher psychological problem scores, while they have lower resilience and life satisfaction scores. Girls have higher anxiety scores, and one of the main results of our study was that the positive religious coping was found to be effective on life satisfaction through resilience. So we can say that positive religious coping increases resilience directly and life satisfaction indirectly. The further studies and especially intervention programs against psychological problems should focus on the older adolescents and girls, while in the secondary school age participants, especially the preventive programs should be prioritized. And intervention and prevention programs should be designed based on specific needs of age and gender groups. These findings indicate intervention strategies can aim to enhance positive religious coping to strengthen resilience in adolescents that would enhance the psychological well-being. Parallel to this study, we have conducted some intervention programs in small groups of Syrian adolescents to secondary and high school students. Our results showed that they benefited from our HOPE intervention and anger control intervention programs. So we can say that more intervention and prevention programs are needed in these groups. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for listening. We welcome your questions in the discussion session. Thank you for watching and hope to see you there. Assalamu alaikum.
See you. Selamünaleyküm.